As many of you know, the Holbrook baseball and softball teams have dedicated today's games to the man who has been Holbrook's very own superfan the past few years. While oftentimes behind the scenes, Mr. Buckley was there for all of us in just about everything we did. Sadly, Mr. Buckley passed away earlier this spring. In his memory, his family has created a William M. Buckley Scholarship Fund to offer scholarships to graduating seniors in Mr. Buckley's memory. The spring sports teams have been selling the shirts you see the girls wearing as uniforms today, and the baseball and softball teams took pledges towards today's games to help support their scholarship. Before the games begin, a few of the players would like to share a few of their thoughts and reflections about Mr. Buckley and the impact he had. At this time, I would ask Caroline Duggan, Emma Curtis, and Zach Duzan to please come forward.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. Emma, Zach, and I would just like to share a few words about Mr. Buckley and what he meant to all of us here at Holbrook High. My first experience meeting Mr. Buckley was in 8th grade. The team had just finished practice at Flint Field, a field which he himself had made sure was playable every day. At the time, I was walking with a teammate to the bus when he stopped us. I had seen him around, but we had never really spoken. Upon being introduced, in true Mr. Buckley fashion, he responded with Miss Duggan and a small head nod. That day, he told me all about what part of my game he enjoyed and what he wanted me to improve on to be the best I could be. Since the 8th grade, my relationship with Mr. Buckley grew. I received many of the famous handwritten letters on yellow-lined paper filled with both constructive criticism and compliments. We spoke about how to become a better athlete, but more importantly, a better person. Constantly, Mr. Buckley was telling me how many people he believed I would throw out from center field if I just lifted a few more weights. But he also made sure I knew how important schoolwork was as well. Although I can thank athletics for my connection to Mr. Buckley, he appreciated any student who walked through the halls of Holbrook High. If you were a member of HCAM, the theater, or a student athlete, he would do whatever he could for you. In my opinion, that is what made him so special, his undying compassion for each and every student. I know that Mr. Buckley is proud of us all here and continues to be as the school grows.
I met Mr. Buckley my 7th grade year on the softball team. I don't think any of us will see someone who had the love for helping the community like he did. Whether it was our field at the JFK or the one that we stand on now, he always made sure it was ready for us to play. He'd always show up to games, many times with his dad, who the softball team calls Mr. Buckley. They were always ready to see us play. Not only did he help us on the field, but he also helped us in school. I remember sitting on the bleachers watching a freshman football game at Blue Hills along with Mr. Buckley. I had been taking pictures with my mom's camera, and he asked me that day if I was interested in HCAM, our school's main media source. Next thing I knew, I was sitting on bleachers at away games filming the varsity boys basketball games. I doubt that I would have been able to do that without his help. Mr. Buckley not only helped me become a better athlete, but also a better student and person. I'm forever grateful for all the things Mr. Buckley had done for everyone, and I hope that we make him proud every time we step on this field.
Similar to both Caroline and Emma, I remember my first time meeting Mr. Buckley. I was a freshman, and he was my junior varsity coach for basketball. The past 2 years, we had many conversations, but for me, our last conversation will always mean the most. It came at the end of this year's basketball season. Our first playoff game was a home game, and although him and his father were both sick, he made sure he was there. One of our best players was injured, which gave me more playing time. I ended up playing one of my best games I have ever played, and we ended up winning the game. Mr. Buckley came up to me at the end of the game and said to me, "They would have lost the game if it wasn't for you." That quote will stick with me forever. Mr. Buckley will always knew the best thing to say to each of us. He showed up for all of us. He'd always be there when no one else was. He cared about all of us and believed in each of one of us. I believe that it was I think that is what I know many of my peers will remember most about him. From taking care of the fields, help paying for jerseys, to just being there for you. Mr. Buckley was a man that would do anything for you.
Thank you, Caroline, Emma, and Zach, for sharing your thoughts and experiences. At this time, I would like to ask that we observe a moment of silence in memory of Mr. Buckley. Thank you. The lasting impression Mr. Buckley has had on the entire community of Holbrook is one that will be felt for many years to come. Mr. Buckley always encouraged everyone to play, not with just talent, but with class and confidence as well. On that note, let's have a great game. In his memory, let's play ball. You go. Thank you. Excellent. That was good.
Good luck, boys. Great. Okay. Go, what do you guys think? Whoa. And break. Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. All right, let's get a nice Holbrook on 3. 1, 2, 3. Holbrook!